I'm really thankful. I will try to, justify their faith in me. I'll be talking about digital forensics and how we can leverage biometrics and related areas while we are working in the area of digital forensics. So that will be the focus. Meanwhile, I would request people to discuss in between. They can interrupt me. They can talk to me. I may ask some questions which you can probably answer. I'll wait for a few seconds for you to answer those things. The title which I've kept today is Cyber Safe, or rather, Cyber Unsafe to Safe. Digital forensics is to the rescue. So, digital forensics, I'm sure most of us know, but still, I will go ahead and define certain terms for you. Cyberspace, everybody knows. When we talk about digital technologies, we talk about internet and smartphones and connected computers and connected devices. That is what is cyberspace for us. And cyberspace slowly has started to impact and go deep into our lives, where we are dependent on various aspects of life, like, to starting from booking a railway ticket to getting a driving license to, in the pandemic, taking online classes. Anything and everything which we used to do once upon a time without technology today is being done by using cyberspace and digital technologies, which also means that when something is being used heavily, people are going to misuse it. Cyber criminals wanted to misuse digital technology because they found most of the people whom they want to do fraud against are using technology. So they started exploring how can they take advantage of this wonderful digital technology, and that is where computer frauds and cyber crimes started to happen. As I discussed in my opening keynote speech, that technology is very new, but it is changing very, very fast. All other technologies which we have seen in past, industrial revolution, green revolution, white revolution, nuclear revolution, they all took time. They were not changing very fast. They once happened, stayed there with us for a very long period. Whereas when we talk about digital technology, things change very, very fast. Can somebody tell me, do you have a laptop which has a DVD and CD drive in it? Anyone?
Yes, sir.
Do you use it? Do you use CD and DVD drive anymore?
No, no.
No, sir, no.
Right. So what? See, this is very important to note here that few years back we were having technologies like CDs and DVDs, and that's where CD and DVD drive exist in your computer, but you are no longer using it. Your other computing devices are useful, but the one part which is CD drive or DVD drive has become useless. You're still carrying the weight of that device with your laptop, but you're not longer using it. That means the speed at which the technology has changed is tremendous. 4G and USB, 4G speed and broadband availability at a cheap rate, along with USB devices which became very, very cheap. Your CD DVDs were replaced in no time without even you thinking twice. You have stopped using that. So technology is just overwhelming us. Again, if you see, let's say 10 years back, if you were to go to a holiday, you will carry lot of digital devices with you. You will carry probably a handy cam for taking videos, a digital camera or a normal camera to take photographs, a digital diary with phone number details, and a calculator or a music device, and so on, right? So list is endless. But all of those has submerged, converged into one single device today, that is your smartphone. So if you see going forward, many more things like we have wearable watches, right? So earlier it was watch, now watch can take a call. Now the latest Apple watches can probably take your ECG. They can measure your sleep cycle. They can measure how much you have done exercise, whether you have done swimming or cycling. They can differentiate between various exercise you are doing. They can find out lot of activities what you are doing, which otherwise was very difficult. You required specialist and bulky machines to do that. Now all of that has been replaced by a very small wearable device, that is your Apple Watch, or your various bands and watches which are coming by different brands. So so digital technology is now overwhelming us. We are dependent on it for any activity which we do in our life, and that's where criminals are also trying to exploit it. Now, see, one more thing which is happening when we talk about digital technology is that amount of data it is generating is again enormous. If you see, watches and phones record all of your calls, details, all messages. Earlier we used to have 10, 20, 30 SMSs which could be stored in your, feature phones, right? Feature phones has a limited capability of storing data. But in smartphones, you can have data for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. You can put SD cards and you can take backups. You can actually connect to cloud and put everything on cloud through your smartphone, which means endless amount of data is being generated, and that generated data is being stored. Phones have a lot of sensors also. So, gyroscope to accelerometer to, proximity sensor, and then, so many other new sensors which are going to come, fingerprint reader to face recognition technologies. All this data is being generated and captured and stored, and that could be used and misused both by criminals and law enforcement agencies. So we are seeing that, digital technology is really overwhelming us, and criminals are actually exploiting it. And I will discuss about what kind of frauds they are doing and why they are able to do these kind of frauds. That would be something which I'm going to discuss. Let's move forward. So, can somebody tell me what makes cybercrime possible for criminals? Why do crimes happen? Who makes it possible for them? Anyone?
Anonymity,
Technology. Okay. What else? Anyone else?
being anonymous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my question basically is, who makes crime possible for criminals? Actually, it is all of us. So if you see, it is us cyberspace users. We as a user give them opportunity. We as a user at times are not aware enough. We as a user at times are not taking precautions. That makes it very, very easy for cybercrime to happen. It is very difficult for cyber criminals to do a crime if users are careful, users take precautions, they don't, they follow the digital etiquettes. It is extremely difficult for criminals to do crime. But because users are unaware, users are indulge in behavior which is not right behavior, they don't follow the cyber etiquettes, and that's where it becomes easy for cyber criminals to do crime, and we'll see how. So one more reason for crimes to happen is convergence of technologies, which is happening because people want convenience. All those devices which I talked, which has converged to a smartphone, basically is to make sure that you are using this smartphone to replace all the devices like camera, handycam, and other things, which means you want more convenience so that you can do every activity with one single device. Actually, also helps criminal in the sense that now they only have to get into one of your device, which is your smartphone, to get all the data. They can, if somebody is able to compromise your phone, somebody is able to do something with your phone, he can get all your photographs, videos, audios, call details, WhatsApp messages, and so on. Earlier, for a criminal to get all this, he has to probably compromise multiple devices. So today, this convergence of technology is providing convenience, as well as this rapid change of technology makes it very difficult for security testers to test everything. So you might have seen that Apple has recently launched iPhone 13, which means now Samsung has to launch a new phone almost having same kind of features, technologies, and hardware in no time. Even if their phone or technology is not fully tested, they can't afford to wait for very long period. Reason is, if they wait, the market will be captured by the competitor. Hence, they don't have a choice but to launch their latest version of device without testing fully at times, because they want to remain in the market. And that is what the speed of change of technology is doing. The speed of change of technology is making difficult for manufacturers, companies, and service provider to test everything thoroughly. And that's where a lot of flaws remain open before the product is launched, and which criminals find out and try to take advantage of. So this is also one of the reasons. Now this is the most important part. This is something which I learned over a period of time, that it is not technology which is being exploited, it is the emotions of the human beings which is basically exploited. As I told in the beginning also, human mind evolves slowly. It has not evolved. If you see something new, you can't just, your mind does not get evolved immediately. Evolution of mind takes place in generations, whereas this digital technology is only one generation old. Generation previous to our generation has not used digital technology thoroughly. They were not born with the technology. Probably the generation come from this upcoming generation, which is millennials or probably post millennials, are the generations which are getting born when, and they're seeing technology before they were born. So they are being raised through technology, with technology, whereas us as well as the previous generations have seen technology as an add-on later on in their part. Hence, our brain has not evolved fully along with technology. So we find it difficult at times to adjust with technology. And criminals are very smart. They know that humans are not very comfortable because they will take time to get adjusted with technology. They try to exploit human emotions. And human emotion, when I talk about him, they are some of the basic emotions which I have listed down here is trust, greed, panic, fear of missing out, threat, disruption, and there could be many more. So trust, you might have seen people call, and you might all have received calls, somebody saying that, okay, I'm calling from your bank, or I'm calling from some service provider, your card will be stopped, your this is linked for the payment so that you can get discount. So they will give you all sort of stories trying to gain trust of you by saying, okay, these are last four digits of your card, this is the last payment which you have made to the card, or if this is the last transaction where you made a transaction of 5,000 rupees, so that they will try to ensure that you believe them, you trust them, and once you trust them, they will try to give you instructions which can lead to frauds. Greed. I'm sure each one of us has received in their mailbox that they have won a lottery, they have inherited some big wealth, some extremely lucrative deal where something is off by 98%, 95%, 80%. So they are trying to invoke emotion of greed so that we click on the link by writing to them that, okay, I want to inherit something, I would like to process my lottery, and where they will ask fee and so on. So basically they are trying to exploit greed, panic, which is very common because if they find somebody submissive, they will threaten them saying that their account will be blocked, their transaction, their account is being misused. So what happens is, let's say, let me give you an example. Recently one of my friends received a call saying a message first, where he received a message saying that XYZ amount was his card was swiped for some transaction for XYZ amount, and the bank has declined it. She was happy to see the message that, okay, somebody was trying to do a transaction on his card and bank has declined it. Immediately receives a call from, and somebody from the other side says he's calling from bank, and he told that his card is being misused by some criminal somewhere, and bank has detected using software, and now bank has blocked that transaction, and now for safety of the cards, bank would like to now block the card and reissue new card. And he told that they are sending him a OTP, and he should share the OTP with the customer care so that the card can be blocked. So the idea is, if you see here, they were creating a panic by telling you that your card has been misused. They have sent a fake SMS saying that your transaction has been declined, which means you feel happy and you try to trust them, and that is where they are trying to extract OTP out of you. Right? They will say they will offer you a scheme which will expire in 10 minutes. They will say, okay, this offer is valid for next 10 minutes if you want to buy something which is 90% discount, because they don't want to give you time to think. And they will say, okay, if you think for more than 10 minutes, this transaction will not happen because time will be out. So they will give you a threat. They will give you that somebody near and dear one is in danger or hospitalized. They will compromise somebody's phone and send you a message. You might have seen demonetization happened. In demonetization time, wallets became preferred mode of payment. So there were a lot of spurious apps, spurious links, and spurious deals where you have to click on it so that your wallet will be charged with 50 rupees, 100 rupees, 200 rupees, and those were all spurious links. RFID tags. When the deadline came for all RFID tags, and last date was approaching, there were a lot of fake sites which cropped up saying, okay, we can issue you RFID card, deliver at your home, and it is only 100 rupees, 200 rupees, or 500 rupees, where you pay the money and nothing comes to you, and you keep on waiting. So basically, if you see any computer fraud, any cyber crime, anything which is happening in cyberspace which is illegal or malicious, most important aspect is they are exploiting some emotions. If these frauds are done against a robot or a bot, these will not happen because robots are not having emotions, right? So they will not fall for the emotion. They will find out facts. Hence, to stop frauds. The stories will keep on changing. Whatever stories I have told you, whatever modus operandi I have told you, they will keep on changing modus operandi, but they will not change what they are exploiting, which is your emotions. So this is something which is important. I thought I'll highlight. So okay, can you tell me which one you think offers more risk? Which link will you go and which link you will not go? There are 5 websites I have written. Can you tell me which one is fraudulent? Which one should you click or not click? Anyone?
Third one.
Third one?
Yeah.
sb1.co.in.
What else? All other are fine?
No, I think all are the.
Sir, in the
Google.
fifth Google, it's a 0, not the O.
Okay, so same is the case with Yahoo also. It is yah00.com.
Yeah.
So
All
they
of
are
them
Maybe
suspicious.
all of them are fraudulent.
not all of them. Actually, first one is a legitimate websites in Russia. It's like a Flipkart of Russia.
So fourth one is ONGC actually. ONGC. Yeah, it's
This is
OGNC.
not ONGC. This is OGNC if you see.
Yes.
Right. So apart from one, all 4 are fraudulent websites
Sir,
which are playing.
if it is legitimate, in that case, the green lock will be appear in the URL bar, right?
So what I'm saying is, see, they are playing with your mind, right? Because our eyes have a very finite resolution. We can't see everything, right? So if I only show you yahoo.com, if I remove all other, then you can't see this is not Yahoo. You will see this as Yahoo only. Since I have written so many, you are able to differentiate and compare, right? But criminal will give you only one option and it will look like genuine. So most of the time, criminals are using these creative methods because human mind is intelligent. I'll show you further. Let me just go a little forward so that I can come back. Okay, can you see something here? What can you see on the screen?
Lift, LIFT.
Everybody can see left? I doubt. Anyways, can everybody see lift now?
Yes.
Yes.
Right, so idea is, I'll again explain this while I come back. I want to show you something. Okay, can one person read it for me fast?
I couldn't believe that.
I could actually understand what I was reading. Using the incredible power of the human mind, according to research at Cambridge University, it does not matter in what order they treat the words are. The only impromptu thing is that the first or the last letter is the right place. The rest can be total miss, or you can still read it without problem. This is because the human brain does not read every letter by itself, but the word as a whole. Amazingly, I was all the thoughts like was important.
So now let me go back. See, most of you can read it. It's completely jumbled, completely wrong spellings, right? But see, as somebody has done research saying that we don't read everything. We only read part of the information. We don't read everything, and that's where these frauds are happening. When you're talking about fourth one, you tend to read it ONGC because that is what you want to read it. That is what it looks like, and that is where frauds happen. So basically, criminals find out different stories based on your emotions and try to do frauds against you. They will use limitations of your eyes, limitations of your ears, limitations of your mind, as I discussed just now, right? Your mind has a limitation that it uses creative ways to find things. It tries to find patterns and make sense out of it. And that is where you were able to read all those lines, right? That you could, which were completely wrongly spelled. So idea is your human limitations, sometimes some things which are your advantage could be your limitations. Intelligence is your advantage, but that intelligence can be misused like it is done in the fourth one, which is ONGC, because your mind intelligence says it is ONGC, right? So that is what I'm trying to say. So emotions are being exploited, they remain same, stories change. So you need to understand, whenever somebody is telling you anything to do in cyberspace, think about, are your emotions being exploited? If yes, then story might be unknown to you, but then your emotions might be exploited to do a fraud, and that must be a red flag for you. So in today's world, in digital world, aankho dekhi and kano suni, which we used to say that you should believe only once something you see by your eyes and something you hear by your ears, actually may not be true going forward. because we have artificial intelligence, we have machine learning, we have powerful programs, technology which can actually manipulate what you can see by your eyes, what you can hear by your ears also. So we should always believe, or rather comprehend everything with a pinch of salt. We need to, when we talk about solutions to these problems, we need to treat the root cause rather than the symptoms. So like in ONGC, we need to again see that it is an incredible power of human mind which is being misused to write OGNC. So we need to understand, can we develop technological solutions which can actually understand problem from the root and not from the symptoms, right? For every effect there is a cause. This is a cause effect principle typically used in forensic science. We need to go to the cause and try to find out evidence from there, try to solve problem from the cause, so that whatever we are, if we are able to address and find out the cause and address it, we are able to address the situation, we are able to address the incident, and we can do a thorough job, and we can do an effective and efficient forensic investigation. Right? Lookart's principle, I'm sure most of you know. It says every contact leaves a trace, which means that you cannot come into contact of an environment without changing it in some way. Which means whenever a criminal is doing a fraud, whenever a person is doing malicious activity, there are artifacts being generated as a result of that malicious activity. That means whenever a criminal is doing something wrong, he is coming into contact of the environment through which he is doing something wrong, and that is where the evidences are there. For example, if I am printing a fake driving license, which means I need to have a genuine driving license of somebody, then I have to scan it, then I have to edit it and print it. So if I have scanned a genuine driving license, that scanned image will be in my computer. When I have edited the driving license which I have scanned and then printed it using color printer to make a new one or a counterfeit one, I have printed a piece of paper with the modified driving license. Now this piece of paper has come into contact with the printer, which means there are printer signatures onto that paper. So if you have to investigate a driving license being counterfeit or not, there could be multiple things which you will get. Since that particular driving license which is under question has been printed by a particular printer, you will get printer signatures, you will get noise of that printer, you will get noise of the scanner which has been used to scan the driving license of the genuine person, which means scanner and printer being in touch in the process of generation of a malicious document will have their signatures embedded into the final document. So if you investigate the final document well, you will get both the signatures printers as well as scanners, and that could be your basis for fixing a particular printer in generation of a counterfeit document. So Lookart's principle and cause effect principle, when properly applied, can solve most of your cyber incidents, can give you the starting points of investigating these kind of frauds, and can give you artifacts and digital evidences which are basically the resultant of contact. Wherever something has come in contact of something other which is causing the malicious activity, there are the evidences. Right, so criminals are most creative people, but they are extremely lazy people on earth. If we understand and appreciate these traits, we can actually develop better digital forensic solutions. So let me take more examples. Any questions so far? Any questions anyone has? Okay. So, again, you might have seen that, most of us use technology, and when we are using digital technology, we are using to, one very common use is to, go onto social media, Facebook, Instagram, all other social medias. And that is where, do you think it is safe? Is doing activity on social media, posting on social media is good? It is fun? Should be done or not done? Any misuses? There could be many misuses. Let's say if you post a photograph on a Facebook, can you tell me what can happen? When you post a photograph on a Facebook, the photograph taken by your phone contains a lot of information other than the photograph itself. It contains which phone has been used to take the photograph, what is the resolution of the phone, focal length of the phone, and various other details about phones are embedded into the photograph itself as a metadata, which is also known as EXIF information. And when you post this photo without removing this information, person who is seeing the photo can extract all other information from that photograph and can know what is your GPS location, what kind of phone are you using, and that could be used maliciously going forward. For example, you are posting a photograph saying going to Goa for 5 days. From that photo, I can find out that okay, your home is empty, and GPS location of your previous photograph where you are saying you are eating home cooked food. I know what is your home, where is your home GPS coordinates, and you're going to go for 5 days means you're nobody is at home at your home. I can go and do the robbery. Right? A person posting photograph of his son winning a prize or award, getting a prize in a school will not only tell you the GPS location of the school, but will also people can also find out okay, the photograph has been taken by an iPhone, which means the person is wealthy, and your kid or the ward could be the potential target for kidnapping because you're using iPhone, which means you are probably right candidate who can give a ransom. Right? So we are seeing internet and gaming is becoming popular. People are playing online games like PUBG to your rummies and so many other online games, and some violent games are also there, and they are becoming addictive. So what the developers are doing, they are trying to develop games where you are hooked onto the games. They're using your senses so that it becomes difficult for you to leave the game. You become addict. Once you become addict, you will spend time, you will spend money, your bandwidth, and that is where they can get more money. They will have more advertisements, more revenue. So they're not bothered about the well-being of the human beings who are going to use this facility. They're only considering and are focused only for the benefits which they can get. Right? Luring by providing free. Do you charge your phones in airport when you go? Let's say you're going for a holiday and you reach airport by 2-3 hours in advance most of the time. Do you charge your phone by that free charging station? Anyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any problem you see there? Has anybody found any pen drive ever in the parking lot or somewhere? Anybody who has found a USB drive ever? Nobody. Okay. So what happens is, phones. This is known as juice jacking. If you charge your phone at those places where public places, data cables are spurious. At times they have malicious softwares or malicious fly-by download kind of softwares which are there. So if you charge your phone in a public charging stations, there are chances that a malicious software can be transferred to your phone. There are chances your data can be extracted. There are chances that your phone can be compromised. Now what should you do? If your phone is running very, very low on battery and you have to charge at the airport, what will you do? There are multiple things which you can do. One is, don't charge your phone, charge your probably the power bank. If you have a power bank, you charge power bank from the public charging docks. And once your phone, because your power bank is not an intelligent device, it doesn't have an operating system. That means no virus can go to a power bank. And then from your power bank you can charge your phone. If at all you don't have a power bank and you need to charge your phone in public, switch off your phone before charging so that your phone is not dead, operating system is not running. It is difficult for most of these compromisers or criminals to infect your phone when your phone is switched off. So these are some very, very simple precautions which you can take and which can actually safeguard you. Right? Free USB drives, I told you. Many people, what they do is they put virus into the pen drives and then throw away these pen drives in parking lots or in places where people can find it. And most people, once they find a pen drive, they'll put this pen drive to their own computers to find out what is inside. Even if they have good intention to return it, they still have to connect it to find out what is there inside the pen drive. Can they get an address of somebody? Once you connect this pen drive to your computer is compromised because again these are infected pen drives. Right? So free typically is very dangerous. Free means you are using free Wi-Fi in a public place. People can snoop on you. They can extract your username, passwords, and whatever activity you are doing on your phone. So free is you need to be very, very careful when you are getting anything for free, because this can actually be misused. Then we are seeing that advancement in technology, including hardware and software, is leading to high usage of artificial intelligence, machine learning to develop lot of things, deepfakes. This is a website which says that this person does not exist.com. Somebody has trained a model of human faces, and now this website can generate random faces of non-existent people on earth. If you go to this website and keep on refreshing, you will get GAN generated faces, and those faces are of not real human beings. They are just generated human beings which do not exist in real. And those photographs can be misused. Somebody can download a photograph through this website and can open an account in a random name and can send you a friend request. And you will probably accept the friend request for a person who does not exist. A criminal is misusing all this data. So these kind of problems are also happening. Right? Robotic arms are being developed which can write like human beings. So I can learn from your signature. Let's see, if I get 1 or 2 or 3 of your signatures of past, I got your handwriting. I can use this handwriting in your signatures to train a model. And after training the model, I can ask a robotic arm to now sign for you by learning from your signatures. So I will give a pen in the robotic arm's hand, and now it will be doing a signature, because earlier people used to do printed signatures. I used to scan signature of yours and then reprint it using printer, but that has a problem. It had the signature of being printer signature. It has noise of a printer. It was easy for most of us to identify it is not a human generated signature, it is a printed signature. But today, if you ask a robotic arm to do a signature for you by holding a pen, it will become very difficult. Right? So in today's cyberspace, online world, privacy is being violated. Your data is being misused. All these things are happening and they are real. So as I rightly say that, social media has brought distance people closer. Your friend which studied with you 10 years back, you can find him even if he's living in US through social media. But it is creating distance between people who live too close to each other, because you're not having time for real conversations. You're too occupied in digital world and cyberspace that it is creating a distance between people around you. We don't talk to each other so much as we talk to somebody on phone or through social media. Right? This is what we have discussed. So idea is, cybercrime is like this world. Without line, it is not visible. Without knowing how crimes happen, you can fall for cybercrimes. But once you know, even if line is not there, you can read it. That means even if you know how crime has happened, if you heard a story, if you know the modus operandi, next time you will be very careful, and it will be very difficult for criminals to do a fraud against you. So my suggestion and request is, we need to change our perspective. We need to be aware. And once we are aware, we can actually develop solutions for these kind of things. And I'm actually working on a book which is now complete. It will be out in October, early October, let's say first to second week. And the title of the book is Cyber Unsafe. So maybe around 5th of October, if you search on Google, you will get details of the book. Here I'm talking about almost 60 plus myths which people have, and I am talking through relatable stories where the incidents, some of them are real, some of them are hypothetical, some of them are which I think can happen going forward, and some very, very easy simple tips which can safeguard you are being written in this book. So it's around 200 plus pages book which can help you safeguard yourself in online world. So this will be a handbook for preventing computer frauds and cybercrime. You can refer to it. It can also give you ideas of what can be the good risk problem or the problems of which can be solved and which requires solution going forward. So maybe you can keep a note of it, and the title of the book is Cyber Unsafe. This we have discussed. So as now we know that computer frauds and cyber crimes are happening, and there is something known as forensics, which is application of scientific techniques to detect and fix computer frauds and cyber crime. Detect over here means that a crime has happened, and fix means can you find out who is the person who has done it and how he has done it, so that in future it does not happen. You can take safety precautions for the same. So that is what the fix means here. There's one more definition of forensics which we typically talk about, which is reconstruction of sequence of event of past by answering WFML questions, which means if you find out answers to who did it, why he did it, how he did it, and if you find out all this information about an incident, and if you put them on a timeline, you can actually generate how something has gone wrong, what might be the way somebody has done a crime, and that would provide you the artifacts and the evidences for that particular incident. So when we talk about digital forensics, it is application of computer science for investigation of cyber incidents. Basically, we are using computer science algorithms, we are using image processing, we are using artificial intelligence, machine learning, statistical tools, and all the coding technologies and programming knowledge which we have, and combining them together to solve the problems of computer frauds and cyber crimes. Right, as I was discussing certain myths. So most people think social media is fun, but in reality it depends. It depends on various factors. If anyone, have you ever checked how much Google knows about you? Can you tell me where were you last year same time? Anyone knows where were they today at the exactly same time today? 1 year back? Difficult to recall. You were there. But if you go to your Google timeline, if you had your phone and you had Google timeline at that point of time, which is obviously yes, it has recorded minute by minute where were you, at which GPS location from last so many years since you are using phone and it is logged into Google. So if you download, if you go to takeout.google.com, it will freak you out because, if you know how much information about you is there on Facebook and Google and other social media sites, you will be astonished. And you can actually download and see. Each user has typically 5 to 10 GB of data, which means it will also tell you what you searched, what time you searched, where were you, what did you order, how much you paid, which hotel were you, which GPS location were you at any point of time, how much time you took from a particular place to some other place, which means you were walking or moving or in a train or in a plane. It will know everything. It will know because you tend to forget as a user. Google is storing everything. He is not going to forget it. Right? So people think they can be trained for investigating computer frauds and cybercrime. Answer is yes and no both. You can be trained if you have a flair for it, but you will require a formal training. It can't happen instantly. There is nothing like a USB data transfer. It's like bootstrapping is required. You need to undergo 3 months to 6 months to a year training or a formal degree. And after that also you will require constant updation, reading, research to keep pace with the technology. Because by the time you know a solution, that solution might be useless because people are no longer using that technology. For example, floppy drives, CD drives, nobody is using them today. We are using 4G. Who knows that next year, same time, we might not be even using 4G. We might move to 5G. Right? So knowing what solution exists, both commercially as well as in academics and research, will help you find out what needs to be done, what is solved, what is not solved. I'm skipping some of the things in the interest of time. Okay, most people may be thinking that press delete and data is gone, but it is not the case. So even if you do a shift delete or format, or even if you break the device, a forensic scientist will always be able to recover data. It might be difficult, it might take some time, but data once created will always remain in storage media. It depends on the capability, knowledge, skill, resource, and motivation of the person who wants it back. It might be very easy to recover data if you just delete it or shift delete it. But if you do a format or repartitioning, it may take few hours. If you break the device, it may take few months. But you can most of the time recover almost all the data, even if any data wiping tool or mechanism has been used. So the piece of advice for each one of you is that never create a piece of electronic data, video, audio, or text, which you do not want to retain forever. Because if you create a piece of data or a audio or a video, at times we take, personal videos or, private videos, it may haunt you even after a long time. Even if you delete it, it is going to be recovered. It is going to be extracted back. We should not create any piece of data which we do not want us to haunt. Date and timestamps. Each digital data has a date and timestamp, and we think date and timestamps are safe, but it is actually not. date and timestamps are, because they are stored on a device, they are physically stored somewhere, hence they can be tampered. It is very easy to tamper using GUI based free tools. Date and timestamps can be tampered. This is one of the example. This is one thing, which if you see here, it says modification date is 2001 and creation date is 2003. Do you think it is possible? Can you modify a document which has not been created yet? So these kind of things, if go to court of law, becomes difficult. So we must understand how it is possible. All this data is stored into file table, master file tables or file system somewhere. So you can write API based tools to change all these things. And if you understand all this, we can actually explain in court of law that all this has been intentionally done. It is not wrong, it has been manipulated. We think criminals are techo geeks? Answer is no, because most people who know, like today I have told you many things. If you want to do a fraud tomorrow, you will be scared because you will know that how crimes can be, investigated. But a person who has not attended my talk, who is not aware about, how cybercrime investigation takes place, will think it is not easy for investigator to identify anything. He will download tools, he will use social engineering, he will do all kind of key logging and all, malicious things, thinking nobody can catch him. So people who know less actually can do more frauds. And designs could be bad. At times fraud happened because of the bad design. So if you see, this is a screenshot of 2009. In 2009, if you were to say, I cannot access my account, and you say, I forgot my password, in 2009, Google had a design where it used to ask you the email ID. Let's say my email ID was Greek mythology, right? So if you say submit, it will ask you a question. It will not ask you anything else. And let's say it is asking favorite color. And you will not believe 98% of people keep their answers as genuine correct answers. So favorite color means if you answer 5 basic colors, white, blue, red, one of them will match and you will reach to a point which will say reset the password. So it's a bad design that people can guess passwords and Google is not asking anything in between. It is not asking a date of birth or city where you are in or any other detail. It is straightforward asking question. At that point of time, two-factor authentication like sending OTP to the phone was not very common. It was possible way where people could misuse and reset the account's password so that genuine person cannot log in further and somebody has compromised the account. So this was a bad design on Google part, not having a security thing and allowing unlimited number of tries to the answer of this question. So one piece of advice to each one of you is, whenever you have a secret question, never answer the answer which is the correct answer. So if you are somebody is choosing a secret question as favorite color, never answer color as the answer. No color like red, blue, green should be your answer. Your answer should be like fan. So favorite color being fan, nobody can guess it. So you should give some non-related answers, some random answers so that nobody can guess. It is difficult to commit identity thefts. It is again a myth. It is very easy to do identity thefts and very difficult to investigate identity theft. People used earlier skimmers, handheld where credit card and debit card could be swiped and information can be holded. Today, when you go to a petrol pump or a restaurant when you are paying, very innovative way they are doing fraud. What they are doing is they will swipe your card in front of you, but there will be a camera phone on a video mode which will now capture both sides of your phone in video, or both sides of your credit card in the video. So you can't see whether there is a phone which is on a video, but that particular phone on a video mode can record both sides of your card, and they can do an international transaction to carry out because international transaction does not require an OTP. So you must delete that 3-digit CVV number from back of your card because without that they can't do a transaction. But if it is there and it is video recorded both sides, criminals can do malicious transactions, international transaction to buy stuff, and then you will not get money because international transactions are very difficult to investigate and it's a time-consuming process. Criminals are also doing anti-forensic these days, which means they are trying to do things so that they can't be caught. They are giving wrong evidences, they are planting evidences so that people who are non-genuine people, there could be evidences which are planted there. So it's like I am working today right now, and if I am working in a BPO where 3 shifts are there, if I change system date and time, to 4 hours before, it will look like that somebody before me have done a fraud. So date and timestamps related frauds are also happening. Side channel attacks are happening, destruction of evidence is happening. So all these things are happening, which again gives you opportunity to do research in this area. You can develop solutions which can stop these kind of frauds. Right, internet and gaming addiction we have discussed. Young people who are addicted to PUBG games and so on. Teachers, teenagers who are using Facebooks for many hours. All this basically they want to engage you. They want you to hooked onto their devices. People are making TikTok videos and Instagram videos, and they are doing it at dangerous locations, and that's where they are getting accidents. So, screen time is increasing and outdoor time is reducing. This is again a dangerous trend. This impacts your mental development, your brain development, and physically also you will get a lot of issues. So we should develop solutions which can help young generation not becoming addicted to computers or technologies. We should use computers and digital technology as a tool rather than they should. Now what has happened is digital technology has become master of us. Digital technology dictates come. Our phone gives out a notification and we reach out to phone. Rather than it should be the case that we use tools, technologies, phones, and digital and internet technologies as tool to solve our problems, rather than they become our masters and we become their servants. So in today's world, survival of the most aware is the mantra. If you are aware, you can take right decisions, you can avoid computer frauds, you can develop new solutions, you can defeat cyber criminals. UPI payments, right? UPI payments have become important. So one single, if you see the last line, pmcares@sbi.com is a right UPI ID for PM Cares. But there are a lot many which were made fake, like PM Care, only the S is missing. Again, they are trying to exploit your intelligence that you will not read full and you will do the payment, and that's where the money transfer happens. So UPI frauds are on rise. Pre I have discussed. Pre is being used to lure unsuspecting users to exploit them. Use jacking is something which I told you when you are charging your phones in public. I have also discussed about dangers of lost and found USBs because they carry malware and your computers are infected and you are compromised. Hardware keyloggers, it's a small device which is connected at the back of your CPU. Yes, if I'm visiting you, if I put this hardware keylogger which is around 2000 rupees only at the back of your CPU, you will never find out. Reason is you will never, do you check your back of your desktop's USB? Nobody does it. So these kind of frauds are also happening. So, prevention is better than cure is also applicable in the digital world. We are becoming where, we are relaxed, we are not fully aware, we are not taking full precautions when we are in digital world because we think nobody is seeing us. But in digital world, you can't see that people can see you. You don't know what people can do, and they can do a lot of frauds against you. So we need to make sure that prevention is better than cure is our mantra when we are talking about digital world. These are some of the places where you can get a lot of information. There is a DFRWS annual event which happens. You get most of the papers for free. You can read them. What is the state of the art which is going on. Slashdot.org lists all the technological news, latest development happening in technology world. What is the new technology which is coming and what can happen with the technology is listed there. So if you read and keep a tab through slashdot.org, you will know what is going on in technology world, and that is where you can anticipate and develop solutions. An IFIP annual event happens every year. In 2022 January, we are having a conference in India. I will encourage you to submit research paper there. If you go to this last website, call for paper is on, and the last day to submit research paper is somewhere in November. So I encourage you to visit these websites, get to know about what's going on in digital world and digital forensic world, and then use all these things for your betterment and development. Right. So if you see digital technology, once upon a time it used to be the case that if you were wealthier, you were immune to the crime. 20 years back, if you have a lot of money, you will buy all sort of sophisticated equipments, people to safeguard you, and you are safe. But cybercrime has tipped it the other way. If you are wealthy, people will connect to you, find out ways to do fraud against you, and you will not know even without somebody visiting you, your money can go. You can be subject to a computer fraud and cybercrime. With this, I will take a break and I am open to questions because I thought this is an area where I can have some discussion, some questions which I can take up. And these could be areas where you can also do research. So if somebody is interested to find out and discuss more about what are the research areas, open problems, internship opportunities, or thesis opportunities, I'm open to discuss those now as well as later on through, if you can send me an email. You can connect to me through LinkedIn, where I keep on posting regular updates of what's going on in the world of digital world, and especially digital forensics. And the link for my LinkedIn is in your chat box. With this, I would like to thank you.
Thank you, sir. If any questions from the audience, you can unmute your microphone and you can ask. Okay, even you can reach him through his email address. He has already mentioned in his slide. Thank you very much, sir, for
Thank you.
accepting our invitation and given a now elaborative speech on cybersecurity, and you have guided how to safeguard ourselves from cybersecurity. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do you feel it? Sir, one more question.
Yeah.
Advancement in technology has reached more crime. No, sir. Okay, thank
Okay.
you. Thank you. It is
Thank
my
you very much. All the best.
Thank you. The next session will start at 12 noon from Mrs. Shubhamangala Sunil. So let us, we will have break now for half an hour. So let us all join again at 12 o'clock for the second session. Thank you all.